This week, we are going to be getting into data types, and we're also going to get into database design. But before we take a look at that, I just want to point out that we do have an industry night out coming up at Sara Lee, and this is an in-person event. So what we do is we all meet there, and they give us a tour, and they explain to us how IT works at their company. And there are typically infrastructure and developer IT personnel there to discuss their jobs. And normally they also feed us. And so we get food, we get drinks, we get a tour. It's actually a nice thing for students because you get a feel for what it's like working out in industry. So if you are interested in this, I did include a link to a flyer that gives you more details. And you will also be able to get extra credit for doing this. So in our week 5 Moodle block, which is the week that this occurs, you will see a Dropbox and it'll be labeled extra credit, Sara Lee Industry Night Out. And you can go right in there and just submit a little paragraph about your experience. I like to know what you thought about the event and what you learned. So moving on to week 4, data types and database design. You are going to want to read the chapters in the book and then go through the key point lecture on data types. It is really short and there is no assignment for this. You will be using these data types when you create your term project, and you will start the design of that term project in week 5. So you will definitely be using these. So this is just kind of an overview of the different data types, and you do need to be aware of these because when you create your tables and you create the columns in your tables, the columns have to be one of these data types. So going to read through this and become familiar with the different data types. Then we get into the design chapter. And really, database design is, it's a skill that is fine-tuned over time. Nobody is a great designer the first time they do it. Okay, so the best way to learn is just to jump in and get your hands in there. So this explains the design process. And so I kind of review what we know, and then we get into normalization. And there are 6 normal forms, I believe, but most databases only conform to the first 3 because each form of normalization takes the data and splits it into more tables. So you kind of break down what you have. And you get up into the 5th and the 6th normal form, and you just have too many tables. It's not very realistic in a business setting. That's why the first 3 are typically what businesses use, and that is what we're going to be using. But you do need to be aware that there's more than 3. So this describes the whole process to you. And I've got examples of how you, if you were an analyst, how would you figure out what data is stored? Well, you look at all the paperwork in the forms. And if you are redesigning something that was online, you'd look at all the online screens. Okay, and then we go through the reasons for normalization, why it's important to do it. And maybe what happens if you don't do it, what kind of a mess your database can be in. And believe me, I have seen some businesses with nightmare databases because they weren't normalized. So this normalization procedure does work. Okay, so you definitely want to go through and read this. I have lots and lots of examples because this conceptual information is hard to understand unless you're looking at an example. So I try to give you lots and lots of examples so that you can see how it works. Once you go through the lecture demo, then we have an assignment where you're actually going to practice using normalization. And whoops, that's the Dropbox. Let's go back here. We want the directions. All right, so there is a little procedure or a process called an ER diagram. Stands for entity relationship diagram. And the entities are your tables. And then the relationship is the column that you are going to connect the tables on. And so we have a couple different exercises where you are breaking data into tables. And this video kind of walks you through that. And there is a lot of software online that you can use to create ER diagrams. I'm having you guys use Microsoft Word. Visio is a very popular diagramming program. I didn't want to have you guys download and install anything else. And pretty much everybody has Microsoft Word. So it's just easy to do this in Word because Word has diagramming shapes built in. So the video kind of shows you how to walk through this exercise in Microsoft Word, how to create the join lines, how to do everything that you need to do to get this diagram completed. Then task 2, we basically take a spreadsheet, and you'd be amazed at how many databases are actually in spreadsheets instead of database programs. It's because people are more familiar with Excel. So I have a spreadsheet that you're going to download, and it's a mess. It's basically set up, all the data is in one spreadsheet. And so what we're going to do is go through the normalization process, and we're going to pull the data apart and split it into tables. And we will put the tables in each table in a different sheet within the Excel workbook. And this video shows you how to do that. I don't assume that you guys know how to use Excel. So you're going to want to watch the video because that walks you through creating the sheets and moving the data around. Then once you complete that, you are going to do an ER diagram on that data. Okay, and so you will be walking through the normalization process. Okay, and I've kind of written down what that process is for this exercise. Okay, and again, the video walks you through all of this. And then I do kind of help you out with that ER diagram. I give you a starting Word document, and you can kind of start from there. Now, quite often, students want additional examples to work through. And so I do have an example of another database or spreadsheet that you can walk through the normalization process on. This is not an assignment, but if you want more practice, you can download this. And then if you wanted to compare it to an answer key, I have the answer key out here. Okay, so you can kind of see how that broke down. And that's just to give you additional practice, nothing required. But in this case, practice does make perfect. You get much better at this the more you do it. Okay, so doing this little extra one definitely would be helpful. So for the assignment, I should reiterate, all you need to turn in is that first ER diagram from the book. And then from that spreadsheet that you download, the normalized version of it. So you've got the data split into the tables and then the Word document. That's what you need to turn in. I did include a couple additional handouts. And one is database normalization and primary keys, just to give you some more information. And then the other one is on functional dependencies. That is a topic that you need to know for your certification exam. Okay, so you definitely are going to want to read through that. It's short, okay, but it is a concept that you do need to be familiar with. Then under course resources, these are all optional, but I went through and defined the terms. I've given you the slideshow. The book has several coding examples, so I've given you those as well. Same with chapter 10. And then another little handout on normal forms, if you feel like you need to read through it. So that is all this week. And what we're doing this week is preparing us for working on our term project, and we will be starting that next week. So if you are confused about anything or if you need help, please let me know because I am here to help you.